applause from InMobi. Not my first time here. I was at White Nights a few years ago, so it's good to be back. Just a quick overview of InMobi for those of you who might not have heard of us. Certainly hope you have. We are a global mobile ad platform. We do user acquisition and remarketing. We have a large publisher footprint under SDK. We reach 1.5 billion users globally. We do brand advertising, which is potentially relevant for game developers, which is focused around video. We do user acquisition, and we do remarketing. We have an exchange, so you can buy from InMobi programmatically, and we also have a DSP, so we can buy programmatically. So that's just a quick snapshot of who we are. Today, I didn't want to go back to basics and just do a 101 of performance advertising, but wanted to look at some of the more recent trends that we're seeing in the market. And the theme is really about how to be efficient in doing your user acquisition and remarketing. So 5 things that I'll talk about today. One is some basic campaign hygiene, just things that you should consider when setting up and running campaigns. I then want to look at user targeting, big theme around incrementality. Are you actually paying for new incremental users rather than paying for your own organics? A bit of a hot topic. Also then looking at the user experience in terms of the recent formats and creatives that we're seeing work well in the market. And then I want to talk about remarketing, which is a big strategy for commerce guys, but actually I think has a role for game developers as well. So those are the 5 themes that we'll look at. Now, I'm not a doctor, but apparently we all have a brain, and that brain has 2 sides, a left-hand side and a right-hand side. And the left-hand side of the brain is very mathematical, logical, and the right-hand side is more creative. And we think that both of these 2 sides of the brain need to come together to do successful mobile marketing. The left-hand side, the logical side of the brain, is very much talking about who should we show ads to, how much should we pay. And then the creative side of the brain is more around what are the right creatives to use that inform, engage, and convert users. So typically you'll have a data science team working on this left part and a creative services team working on the right-hand side of the brain. I won't go into any more anatomy topics. That's it. So the first theme is campaign hygiene, and especially if you're a successful app, you're spending a lot of money, you have a lot of organics, these are kind of things that you really should have in place when running your campaigns. So first is a suppression list. You do not want to show ads to users that will already have your app. Fairly common sense, but that does mean providing organic users to your advertising partners to ensure that they can deploy that suppression list. And I know that for some time there is sensitivity around providing organic users, but I'd strongly suggest if you do a data sharing agreement, that can dictate how your user can be used just for you, how that data is stored, how that data can be deleted on request. So it just gives you confidence that you're sharing the data, but it won't be misused. This is also important for lookalike targeting, which I'll talk about in a future slide. 2-way postbacks. So really this is data going 2 ways. It's not just about the game developer providing data to the ad partner. Actually, you should expect data to come back. So if you're optimizing campaigns to a post-install metric, whether that's a first purchase or some retention, 7-day, 14-day retention metric, you need to be posting back those post-install events to the ad partner so they can optimize the campaign. But more than that, the ad partner should be providing data back to you. They should be providing click data, impression data at an app bundle ID level so that you know where your ads are running. If you're going to spend a lot of money on paid user acquisition, you must know where your ads are appearing, who's seeing them, with what frequency. And so really, in terms of a trusted and transparent relationship, we believe you should have this 2-way back and forth of data. And certainly you should be asking this data back from your ad partners. Another well-known theme is attribution. We could probably talk all day about attribution, but make sure you have sensible attribution windows set up which are right for the different formats, whether that's CTA or VTA, and make sure that you apply them consistently across all your partners so that you can compare who's working best for you. You might work with partners who do self-attribution. If you're working with partners that do self-attribution, you'd still offline do a level playing field comparison of those who are doing self-attribution and those who are on last click or last impression through a third-party tracker to make sure, again, you're evaluating all your partners correctly. Incrementality is another big theme of the past 12 months. Am I buying genuine incremental installs, or am I just wasting money on installs that I would have got otherwise? And so doing some kind of incrementality test is also important if you're investing a lot of money. And I've got a slide on that later. And then finally, enabling deep links. I think most of the developers we work with have got deep link enabled now, but as you're optimizing towards post-install events, you want to be able to give yourself the opportunity to do remarketing to users, whether that's dormant user reactivation, whether it's new user activation. You want to be able to show them ads and bring them directly back into the app without doing a weird path going back to the App Store. So these are just some of the kind of most recent hygiene factors that I wanted to call out. So still kind of on the left-hand side of the brain, looking at targeting. Targeting is very important, and it's increasingly important. Actually, gaming is lucky in that you can just run across sites which you think will work good for you and have a similar audience. But ultimately, that is inefficient because not every user on a publisher site will be exactly the right user for you. You're also limiting yourself because you're not actually then running the campaign outside of the gaming ecosystem on non-gaming publishers. And inventory is getting expensive. If you look at the cost from a CPM point of view of impressions on publishers on first call order, it's very expensive. So you need to be more precise in terms of the users that you're targeting. You can certainly still run across sites. And most of the campaigns now we are running on user cohorts with site inclusion, depending on the genre of the game that we are marketing. And this enables us to, when you're running on cohorts, you can run agnostic. You can run on any publisher. You're just trying to find these cohorts of users. And most ad partners would have built out network-level cohorts which are relevant to the type of game that you're looking to grow. Now, that's kind of basic targeting, common sense. If you want to do more customized targeting, what we're seeing work very well is what we call lookalike targeting. So this is very customized to a specific app. If you share a sample of your organic data, maybe it's high-value users, you then do a lookalike analysis. So you do an overlap of the organic users with your network users. Of course, in that overlap, your ad partner will know a lot more about those users than maybe you do, and they will be able to build a profile of why is that a high-value organic user for you. Once you have that overlap, you can look at the users in that kind of middle bit of the Venn diagram and look at the features, look at the SKUs, what is it about those users, and that creates a very precise lookalike cohort which enables you to find more users that look like your current high LTV users. This is especially important if you are looking to invest on programmatic. If you're looking to use a DSP to buy programmatically, it's very important that you're very laser focused in terms of the users that you're looking to find, else you will potentially lose a lot of money spraying and praying around the exchange ecosystem. Now, don't worry too much about the detail here, but targeting is good. We love targeting, but it is still quite binary. Do I show an ad to this user or don't I? Is this user in a cohort which I'm currently running the campaign against or not? So it's very 0-1. And it's kind of inefficient in itself. Lots of different ad groups, lots of different prices. So increasingly what we're looking to do here is say, look, I understand what targeting works. It's becoming quite standardized. I understand that different devices, different OSs, different carriers, different locations all have different values. And rather than setting up lots of cohorts to target, actually what we want to do is build them into a prediction engine so they all have different factors. And the benefit of this is that rather than saying I only show an ad to this user and not this user, I potentially can show an ad to any user in the world, but because of my prediction conversion, I'm setting a different price based on the targeting features. And in addition to all of these targeting cuts here, which go into the machine learning, you can also add in any other information you might have about the device ID of the ad request. Maybe their past behavior, other apps that they own. You also have publisher signals. If I'm running on a publisher, are they first in the waterfall? Are they second in the waterfall? I can look at session depth. Is this the first time I've seen the user today? Is this the third or fourth time I've seen the user today? Is this the second ad within the session or the fourth ad that I've got from this user in a session? All of these are important factors. And overall, what these are doing is basically predicting conversion and then driving dynamically a bid price at the other end. So when you crack this, you could have a post-install metric which is cost per first in-app purchase, and through the machine learning and the prediction, that will then come up with a CPM in real time that you can bid for that user. And this is really how we are seeing how you can grow your user acquisition at scale efficiently without wasting a lot of money. Incredibly important for programmatic buying as well as campaigns that you run on ad networks. So another big theme here, which we've talked to many game developers about over the past 12 months, is incrementality. And here, we've worked with some of the developers to do incrementality tests. Now, some of our customers have done very blunt incrementality tests where you literally stop marketing for 3 months and see what happens. What happened to my user growth? Did it go up or down? That can be a bit risky because if paid marketing is indeed incremental, which of course we trust that it is, that can actually upset the momentum of your user growth. But you can do smaller incrementality tests just to kind of give yourself confidence that your marketing dollars are actually generating incremental installs. So in this test, fairly simple test, but you have a random set of non-organic users, and then from that set you create a holdout group and a target group. The target group, you show the ad for your game, and the holdout group, you do not. You run the campaign for 3 weeks. At the end, you then look at the two cohorts and look at the relative install conversion of both sets, the exposed and the holdout. And if there's incrementality, you should see a higher conversion in the target cohort. It's best if you do this at an ecosystem level. So for your holdout group, you want to make sure that no vendor that you work with, none of the partners that you work with are showing ads to the holdout group so that you can get a clean test. And then when you're looking at comparing the two cohorts, we suggest using view-through attribution. So looking at installs based on whether they saw an impression. And this is also kind of helpful in trying to understand what is the impact of showing an ad impression on installs and not just a click. So there's certainly people that can help you do these kind of tests. I think people like Celtra we've worked with in the past to do these tests for game developers. But it's a good thing to get done so you can feel confident that all the money you're spending is actually generating incremental installs. I think also we've seen game developers doing a lot more on measurement and transparency. And in some respects, we're inheriting what's long been done on brand advertising. And if you're working on an SDK partner who has SDK inventory, you can run third-party tags. One tag that you can run is audience verification. People like Double Verify and Nielsen. Maybe not so relevant for gaming, but this is more to say if I sold in that I'm going to run a campaign on a certain audience persona or audience cohort, did I indeed find the right audience? And Nielsen will do that verification. I think maybe more relevant to gaming is tracking ad viewability, looking at how people engage with the ads at an impression level. That could be degrees of completion of a video. It could be time spent on an interstitial ad. And again, by running these tags, you can get all this information back, which is seeing how your users engage with your impressions. So you're getting much deeper into measuring your campaigns, not just picking up your analysis when you get a click reported to you at the tracker. So these are all positive things that you can do. I think probably there's been a session on this already today, but avoiding fraud is another big topic that's come up in the past year or two. And a lot of the tracking and attribution partners, Tune, AppsFlyer, Adjust, Kachava, all have their own fraud prevention tools that are now available for you. And we certainly suggest that you adopt those and try those out to make sure that you're cutting out the fraud, whether that's ad stacking, click injection, click spamming. So a lot of you guys are now looking at short and long MTTI. You're looking at number of clicks per timestamp, number of clicks per IP. A lot of the indicators that maybe something funny is going on. So certainly, this is a big area which will help you be efficient. And then also, we're working with developers who are doing very granular session-level analytics, working with the likes of Game Analytics and Upsite, Lean, Plum, mParticle. And these, by going into that level of granularity, that can fit nicely into a marketing strategy, especially around remarketing, which I'll talk about in a minute. So that's the kind of left-hand side of the brain, some of the recent trends we've seen on more the logical, mathematical side of performance advertising. And now I wanted to talk to you about some of the formats and creatives that are working well. So the first one is playable ads. And this is really now being very widely adopted by most of our gaming partners. Why playables? Well, we see fantastic CVM. That's the click-through rate times the conversion rate. So we're seeing CVM's conversions almost double that of video. A playable is, when you're looking at engagement on a playable, you're getting a real signal of intent. So whilst you might get good engagement on a video, well, we don't exactly know what the user is doing when that video is playing. Are they really focusing, concentrating, engaging with the content or not? But with a playable, you're seeing a real level of intent with the engagement. It's a fairly abundant supply, so this uses an interstitial ad format, which is widely available. So there's a lot of real estate. And then also we see very high LTV coming from this format, very informed at the point of click. The user is very informed at the point of click, so we're seeing very high LTV. And I wouldn't look at playables as being, oh my God, this is really complicated. How do I do this? I'll do this in 6 months. A lot of ad partners will build these for you. They're fairly easy to get up and running. You can then review them to make sure that they're on brand and meet your brand guidelines. We can reiterate them. And then a few of the best practices that we've seen on playables so far. We're still learning. One is that you don't really need to have a start or a play now button. It's fairly intuitive. You can just let the user interact without providing that extra step. Another thing is that a playable isn't necessarily just your tutorial put into a playable ad. That doesn't necessarily work so well. Certainly it should be a relatively easy but engaging stage of the game, but don't just default to saying, oh, let's just use the tutorial. We've also found that a playable that is less than 10 seconds really is not very effective. It doesn't give the user enough time to really get the essence of the game. So that we look at around 15 to 30, maybe 45 seconds of playable to find the right balance of the ad experience and understanding the game dynamics. We also have found that by putting an Install Now button within the playable is increasing conversion. So if a user is liking the game, that they can very easily get to the landing page in the App Store. And then similar to a video, we've seen that putting an end card actually is also good for increasing conversion. Similar to a video, you can press skip on the playable and then you have an end card experience, which could be carousel cards, could be a video, could just be more information. So then if somebody accidentally comes out of the playable, they've got another chance to still install. If for pure user experience reasons you really want close button to mean close, and I understand that, then also that's something that you can do. The next one is vertical video. So I think for a long time we were very focused on landscape video. That doesn't look particularly good on a portrait ad format, that kind of letterbox experience. And what we're finding here is that the conversion rate of showing a optimized vertical video in a portrait ad format is showing around 30% plus conversion rate rather than just throwing in a landscape video. Why vertical? Well, from a casual gaming point of view, a large majority of ad requests actually come in as portrait, so you're just optimizing your video for where the most popular format that comes through on the ad requests. Most people don't like rotating their phone to have to look at an ad. If you're playing a game in portrait, you don't really want to have to shift it around to look at the ad. So it kind of makes sense. And then if you look at some of the best practices, actually it's very similar to video in general. Have interactive features in the video, and you can do lots of things on rich media to interact, swipe, move, zoom, using all the native functionality of the device. The end card experience also still very important. What you do on the end card, you could put a playable in there, you could have carousels, you should just try different things, but the end card experience, like any video, is extremely important for vertical video. We've also found that the one-to-one ratio square video also works well on the portrait ad request. So then we've also got something called half and half, which I think might be interesting, which in some ways brings together the best of everything. Here you have a portrait ad request, and you're showing a video at the top and either a carousel format, as shown here at the bottom, or you could show a video at the top and then have a playable at the bottom. So what you're bringing to the table here is that you have a really good mix of bringing out the essence of the game in the video, but then also supplying the opportunity to have an immediate interaction with the game itself. Rather than having these in different stages of a video and then an end card, it's presented to you all in one format. Again, the LTV that we've seen from users coming through this format is very, very high. Again, you're very knowledgeable about the game when you're clicking through, and so that means that there's a good chance you'll be a high LTV user. In terms of best practices, in fact, these are really some of the best practices for creatives in general. So really it's about refreshing. You don't want your creatives and formats to become stale. And so with the carousel end cards, we suggest that they should be refreshed every 2 weeks. For a playable, refresh every 4 weeks, and then a video refreshed every 4 to 6 weeks. So this is very important because you can clearly see when fatigue kicks in on a creative level and the conversion rates go down. So the final thing I wanted to talk about today was the importance of remarketing for game developers. And we have a remarketing platform. We've worked with remarketing with the commerce guys for a very long time. And for some reason, I think we should have done remarketing with game developers a long time ago. A lot of game developers spent a lot of money, got huge user base, kind of got to a saturation point, and then it was like, well, what do I do now? And in fact, the marketing should have evolved to be about retaining your high-value users, maximizing your revenues. So it's pretty basic. What is remarketing actually mean? So you need some way of cohorting your users, which I'm sure you have. So you need some kind of dynamic audience builder, which creates the cohorts of users that you want to retarget. You want to use custom creatives. You don't want to use user acquisition creatives on a remarketing campaign. It's a different call to action. It's going to be more around playing rather than installing. And then you need to know how much to bid on the cohorts. And different cohorts will have different values. And maybe there's just an element of trying and testing to find out what is the right price that you can pay for these retargeting cohorts such that they're ROI positive. So I'll talk about two really basic use cases. It seems kind of very obvious. The first one is you have a new install, but that person hasn't played the game, and they kind of don't become an active user. And you yourself will know at what point is an install really not going to lead to a user, whether that's 7 days, 14 days of inactivity. And it's all very rules-based. So through the dynamic audience builder, you can say, if after 7 days a new installer has not played my game, I can dynamically create a cohort, I can run a remarketing campaign against that cohort of users using remarketing messages, and then deep link them back into the app, which is why I was saying earlier about the hygiene. Having deep link enabled is very important. So this is a really good way of increasing your activation of new installs. On the other extreme, you might have users that were very high LTV users, very active users, but you haven't seen them in a while. They've become dormant. Again, you will know what is the right definition. Maybe they haven't played for 2 weeks, maybe it's a month. Again, it's all very rules-based. And as you find a user who's maybe not opened the app for 14 days, dynamically you create a cohort to remarket them, to drive them back into the app. So that's kind of looking at two ends of the funnel. We ran this with PLAYABLE, who gave us a cohort of dormant users. We ran the campaign, and we were able to find 60% of that dormant user cohort And the campaign was successful because of the 60% of people that we found from that cohort, 20% of users engaged with the ad and deep linked back into the app. And of those, 80% actually did another further in-app purchase. So strongly consider you thinking about how to build a remarketing strategy into your marketing plans. And just finally to say that all of the things I talked about on creatives, whether that's playable ads, whether that's the video ads or the half and half, all of these can be used both for remarketing and user acquisition. So that's it from me.